the February just before she was killed, so just 4 or 5 months later. Then they ran her through the MRI scanner again. And I'm telling you, Nate, it was as if she didn't have cancer at all.
Wow.
And the doctors, her physicians, her oncologists, her pediatric surgeon, everybody said they had never seen anything like that before.
Wow.
Furthermore, they had never had a pediatric chemotherapy patient not lose weight. Emily did not lose weight throughout her chemotherapy regimen. She actually gained a pound.
Wow.
So the only way that you would know that this little girl was sick was that she had lost her hair. And aside from that, she had miraculously beat the cancer.
Wow.
Now, just before she was killed, we brought her in on her birthday, and we were told by the oncologist that she should go for one more regimen, 5-day regimen.
One more regimen. Chris, I want you to hold that thought.
Yes, sir.
We're going to have to run to a commercial, and then we're going to come right back.
Okay.
And then I want you to finish sharing with us
Certainly.
what took place in that, and not only what took place, but what impelled you to do what you had to do. Folks, we'll be right back. You're watching Giving Up Is No Option with Chris Jerry of the Emily Jerry Foundation. Stay tuned. Welcome back, family. You're watching Giving Up Is No Option. I'm Nate Phillips. We're here interviewing Mr. Chris Jerry. He's the CEO of the Emily Jerry Foundation. And Chris, finish telling us the story about Emily. I feel like, you know, Emily was a part of me as well. As I told you, you know, I looked on your website, I saw pictures of her. I have children myself. I'm a dad also. Right. And it touched me emotionally. You were sharing with us the passing of Emily.
Yes, yes. Emily, we were told that Emily had miraculously overcome this grapefruit-sized tumor that was in her abdomen. There wasn't even any residual scar tissue remaining.
Wow.
On the films. It was as if she had never had cancer of any sort. And we were told that by her oncologist, it was recommended that she go through one more 4 or 5 day round of chemotherapy just to make sure that there weren't any residual cancer cells hanging out that could, you know, rise up and metastasize later on in life. And
so they suggested to you to go through just one more.
Right, one more round. And we were all so happy as a family that I had even planned a trip to Disney World with the kids and SeaWorld down in Florida. We wanted to celebrate Emily, you know, getting all better.
Definitely Emily's miracle.
Yes, yes. And on the day that she received her lethal dose, I arrived down at the hospital, and my wife was holding Emily in her arms. Emily had passed out from the pain. And you know, I said to my wife, I said, you know, what's going on? And she said she didn't know and just gave me a blank stare, and all of a sudden all the physicians and everybody rushed in to find out what was going on. Apparently they had started Emily's IV chemotherapy, and she had been taking a nap. She had woken from her nap and just screaming out in pain to her mother, and holding her head, "Mommy, my head hurts, my head hurts." And screaming and crying, and Emily pointed towards my wife's can of Coca-Cola, as if, she needed something to drink. And my wife gave it to her, and Emily just chugged this whole entire can of Coke. And she kept screaming out in pain, and then all of a sudden she passed out, and that's when I came into the room. And we rushed her down to intensive care. And I went back then to Emily's room after they stabilized her in the ICU. I went back to Emily's room and recovered the empty compounding bag. It wasn't empty, but the bag that had delivered the lethal dose. And kept that, and that's how we found out or discovered ultimately, what had happened to Emily.
Wow, and what had happened to Emily was the
mix-up was in the preparation of her chemotherapy regimen that day. And a pharmacy technician pharmacy technicians, unbeknownst to me and my wife and everybody, even Emily's physicians that had worked in the hospital for years and years and years, were not aware of the fact that pharmacy technicians in the state of Ohio at that time were not required to be licensed, trained. There were no requirements whatsoever for pharmacy technicians, and yet pharmacy technicians were routinely used, as they still are, in all hospital in-house pharmacies to prepare things like IV chemotherapy mixtures. The pharmacy technician who prepared my daughter's lethal dose, a girl by the name of Katie Dudash. She prepared this medication, and
it was a wrong mixture.
It was
right?
it was the wrong mixture, and the pharmacist that was overseeing what she was doing, Eric Kropp, he approved it, and Katie even felt that something was wrong with that mixture, and said to Eric, Eric, something doesn't look right with this. Do you want me to re-prepare it? And he said, no, send it up. They were very busy that day. And she did that 3 or 4 times. And he said, no, send it up. It's fine, Katie. And
because things were very busy that day. And
right.
Now, you had, and that's powerful. And something you had told me a little bit earlier was that the pharmacy technician did not wake up that day and think that she was going to be a part of a young baby losing her life.
No, and that's the thing I've learned throughout this whole horrible tragedy, is that this may sound bizarre to some people, but I've actually forgiven Katie Dudash.
Definitely. And you mean that.
I mean that from the bottom of my heart, because they're part of the tragedy.
Right.
I mean,